Well, welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today in our discussion part about sheriffs. As Rhea alluded to in her story on Post, there is a shortage. This is not a slight shortage, it's a severe shortage of eligible deputies coming out of Post, and there's not a single county across this state that isn't looking for extra help in the Sheriff's Department for deputies. Joining us for discussion about the problems and possibly the solutions from Sevier County, representing the rural counties, Nathan Curtis, the Sheriff of Sevier County, and we have Rosie Rivera, the new Sheriff of Salt Lake County, who didn't have to drive as far but has a very busy schedule. So we'll get right to our conversation and get you guys into your day. Thank you for joining us. So I want to start the conversation by just asking where the shortages come from, because I know that UHP is trying to steal from the county, and I know that Salt Lake City is trying to steal anybody they can from anywhere around the state. And so why did we get in this spot? What happened?
Do you want to go first, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think a lot of it has to do with there's a culture change where people don't want to be police officers anymore. Also, the retirement system changed, so there's not a real incentive when you have to work 25 years and you get less than the person you're working side by side with that was in the retirement, what is it?
The state retirement
Tier
program.
1.
Uh-huh.
So the Tier 1, it's 20 years and you get 50% and it builds up, but you're working right next to somebody else that has to work 25 years.
So I guess that's the question. That was a recent change the legislature went through. That
4 years ago, I believe.
About 4 years ago. Did we make any headway? I know it was a big topic in the legislature to try and get that corrected.
We didn't get anywhere with that. A big part of it, again, is the public opinion of it. When I was hired on over 20 years ago, that was part of the enticement to come into law enforcement is, hey, in 20 years you can retire in place. That's why we're going to pay you only $10 an hour. We're going to pay you less now because you can do that later on. That option was taken away, and so a lot of our officers, you're seeing them not stick around, so we're losing a lot on the upper end. The bottom end is hard to get new people just because of that very reason. The retirement, the pay, the legislature changing different things on us.
So are you actually losing officers that have already gone through Post and been in the field and the retirement changed and they go, oh, forget this?
They can't see themselves working 25 years. You know, for a young person, 25 years is a long time.
Yeah, especially when you hit that 20, particularly in this kind of line of work. I mean, you know, you got to be able to run a mile and a half, and you got to be able to, you know, scale walls and pull yourself over. It's not easy work.
Absolutely, and it's just the day-to-day. And that's why it was set originally at the 20 years. The things you see, the things you deal with every day tends to burn out a lot of people. And so if they get beyond that 20 years, the 25 to the 30 years, you look at a lot of those men and women, some of them are really jaded about how things are done, and they get very burned out, and we don't become as effective when we're that way.
So how do we solve the problem? I mean, we can't just go on stealing from each other I noticed that you guys were kind of like, how many deputies do you have? I'm not going to tell you when we walked in here today. I mean, what do you...
Well, there's some things that we can do. We can try and retain the employees that we have, which is still really tough because the job market is, right now anybody can go out and get a job and make the same as a deputy makes right away. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we will have to start raising our pay more and more, and that's what we've been doing in this crisis is we're all competing and raising our pay to catch up with the next agency. I am going to be taking to the sheriffs a suggestion of maybe hiring officers at a younger age, 18, 19, or 21, but only for jails. Mm-hmm. Not for the law enforcement side, but just to come into the jail. There's some jobs that they could possibly do, but that's a huge change to what we've been doing.
So I guess that begs a question. Why not just wait till they're 21?
Well, if you wait till they're 21, there's this gap of when they get out of high school. They have 3 years, but in those 3 years, they either get married, have children, find jobs, or some of them even find themselves in trouble, and then they can't pass a background. So if we can get them right out of high school, military does it all the time, and we train them well, we should be able to have them work in a jail, law enforcement side is always going to take from the jails. We train our people very, very well, and they like that. They like experienced officers to go to the road. So if we can even have them for that 3-year period, that's still going to help us out.
So I guess the background check is kind of a stunner to me. Is that has significantly changed? Are other states lowering their standards?
I don't know what other states are doing. I haven't looked into them. I know other states aren't quite as intense as the state of Utah is in what we will accept for an officers, but I know even in the years that I've been in as sheriff, it has changed the requirements on drug use, things like that. Those things have been, the strings have been loosened a little bit so that we can still allow for that.
So you're saying some of the deputies you hired today couldn't have hired when you got hired?
Most of the ones I've been lucky enough to hire, I've had a couple I've had to turn down that were considered, that years ago we wouldn't have even accepted their application at all.
Do you think part of this is a problem that the perception of law enforcement officers, people still think that it's like a technical school, and training is that it's, you know, like a 6 month of training, and they don't realize that you've got to understand the entire criminal code, you've got to understand Homeland Security, you've got all these different areas of law. I mean, between that and the psychology and the hostage negotiation, I mean, it's tougher being a law enforcement officer now than it's ever been. Do you think that there's a perception that people don't understand the skill set that's required versus what they think the job is?
I think people understand what is required, but I think the attitude towards it, all across the board, everything from our county commissioners, our state legislators, the general median public, have a perception that we're not as important or that it's not as good of a career. So they're not willing to put the money there or the attitude towards it that this is a good career, this is an honorable profession, and we want to have the best people we can.
So at some point that though it's going to implode though, isn't it? Because at some point, if you're losing people to, say, you know, oil field security officers because they can make 60 grand a year and there's no way that a deputy's ever going to make that, and all of a sudden your shortage will continue to grow until you are not down 8 but you're down 25, then people start getting hurt because there's not enough law enforcement. Is that what we're going to have to go to till it changes?
Well, you know, I think that law enforcement will always step up and make sure those communities are safe, but I think the real issue is going to be in the jails. If you can't staff a jail, law enforcement side can't be booking people in. Then what do you do? And, you know, we have a situation right now with Salt Lake County Jail. We're down about 88 right now, deputies trying to hire. And, you know, all the other agencies around us are taking our people, but they don't realize when you do that, it affects you as well, because if we can't have you put people in, then what happens?
I know you're too gracious to say this, but I can say it. So Salt Lake City comes in and they hire away your jail staff. They put them out on the beat. They arrest somebody and they send them to the jail they stole the deputy from, and you've got no way to book them. You're having more problems staffing than you are with the total number of beds available? Is that a problem?
We're having more problems right now with staffing, but we are at full capacity. We have been for several years.
So what's your situation like in Richfield?
So I've replaced 1/5 of my office in the last 4 months. We did a hiring back last October. We had 4 applicants. 4 applicants. And only one of them would pass the background in the interview process. Then when we told him how much his paycheck was going to be, he says, that's okay. I'm going to the prison for $3 an hour more.
So you ended up trying to...
I wasn't able to hire anybody because of where we were pay-wise. The other thing to consider, especially when it comes to the jails, when you're that short-staffed, now you're going to be paying overtime to cover that. And when you start paying overtime, that affects her budget, my budget, all of our budgets, and then those guys get burned out as well. Then when you really need them for other things, they're not willing to come in.
So they're basically shot at 15 years instead of 20 or 25. So how do you fix the problem? I mean, that's a serious, and if you have I hate to use magic wand because everybody makes fun of me because I say it too much, but if you could write a prescription There we go. That's a new one. If you could write a prescription to solve the problem, hand it to the governor and the legislature and your county commissioners, what would the prescription be?
I would first start with that retirement system. We have to change something because you can't have people working in the same department side by side with two different benefits. We lose people that way. We lose our tier 2. Also, I do believe that if we take a look at changing the age for the jails, for corrections, that could help. Their pay is always an issue. We're always competing with pay. And, you know, until we figure it out, that's what we're going to have to do, is keep paying and paying more and more money.
Do we have to just find more pay?
Pay is a portion of it. When it becomes to a point where the pay isn't the worry, then it's the work environment. So it's a combination of all of the above, exactly what we've been talking about. It's your work environment, it's your pay, it's when you have people working on a task force or whatever, side by side doing the same job, getting completely different pay. Those things affect it. But also, we need to, and I think Sheriff Rivera is exactly right, we start in the high schools a little bit and we do a law enforcement class. And then all of a sudden they learn that I have to wait 3 years, I have to go do something else in the meantime, and those things happen. So we need to continue that progression all the way from high school, find a way to keep them involved in what they're doing and excited about it, and continue that process. So pay is a big part, retirement is a part, but I think work environment is a big deal, and we need to continue that process.
So let's take a turn in our conversation here for a minute, and let's talk about some of the things that you do have in place that might help. Now, I understand that some counties in the state have a cadet program. Would you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, cadet or explorer programs, they allow students or anybody that's 15 to 21 years of age to join that program, and basically they train you just like they do a police officer. You get to see what it is to be in the shoes of an officer, but you also get to train. With the UPD cadet program, they even have rank, similar, just like law enforcement. So that is ingrained in them. However, we can't hire them until they turn 21.
So they just are in this training. I'd have done that in a heartbeat. I mean, heck, I got a job at the University of Utah writing parking tickets just so I could ride along with the officers. You know.
Yeah, I think Las Vegas Metro, they have the same program, and they're actually able to use those cadets younger to actually do more ride-alongs, help them, your basic cat in a tree call. They're able to help out with that. And I think that cadet program is really what helps those guys carry on through the years.
Yeah, ours even help us with the parades, all our special events. They will work the booths. They'll even block traffic for us. So those kind of things that usually take a law enforcement officer
They free up that
do.
officer for other things. Now, okay, people can see it in a big county like Salt Lake. Could you implement something like that in Sevier?
I don't have the manpower. There's just no way I could do it. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky enough to have an SRO that helps out and teaches a law enforcement class, but he's there for a specific purpose in the schools. Outside of that, we've tried to start different things in the years, but pretty soon it burns out because either you don't have enough people that are interested or we don't have time.
So this is an avenue for a metro county that might help them. What would you do?
We try and steal from Sheriff Rivera. That's what we try and do.
True confession.
But I think it's the same thing, though. We try and do it a little bit with the schools, and we teach a law enforcement class there, and we try and give them as much of experience as we can. Maybe not to the level that Sheriff Rivera does and some of the others. I know Washington County does one as well, but that's where we try and start that and try and allow them to do it and have as much positive interaction with them so that they know that this is a career that's great and it's worked out for us.
Is there a mentoring component in that really helps?
Oh, yes.
A kid comes in 4 or 5 hours a day, and then pretty soon, there's a lieutenant that he likes, or there's a sergeant that takes him under his wing, and all of a sudden says, this is what I truly want to do.
Oh yeah, we've relied heavily on the fact that we get people that want to stay in a rural county. They grew up there, they want to stay there, but that doesn't work anymore.
So you alluded to something, Nathan, a little bit earlier that probably deserves follow-up. You say that you have problems getting people to qualify in post. Is that part of what your SRO program is get down to high school and saying, hey, if you like this and if we've given you a taste of it, you got to keep your nose clean till we can get you in there?
Absolutely. We try and tell them, clear back into the high school. This is what's expected of you. If you get in trouble, you get something doing a felony somewhere, you're not even going to be considered. Anything that deals with integrity, an assault, anything like that, you got to know.
From your standpoint, a county like Sevier, or even more so like Paiute, Marty Glebe, if you could hire out at 18, you might be able to solve some of your shortage problems.
Might be able to help some of that and get them into a career a little bit sooner and help them out. It could help us.
Wow. Okay, that really sounds like something that needs to be done. Any other points that we need to that you need to cover? I've got legislators listening. The governor usually watches this show. You've got your chance right now. What do we need to get across to him?
I think the attitude towards our peace officers needs to be that they are a member of our community. When I look at my deputies, when I was looking at our wages, I have deputies that qualify for food stamps. I have deputies that qualify for heat assistance.
I do too.
How hard is that for a deputy to feel like they are a member of our community and really want to have that stay and that impact into our community when they are told that, hey, just go down to the bar, hire the first 5 guys that come out of the bar. When the attitude of our county leadership and other leadership, and I know not all of them say that. So,
yeah, no, I know.
But there are some of that general attitude towards the public. Why do we have so many peace officers? Why do we have so much law enforcement? And then they say, well, why'd you take you so long to get here?
Yeah,
and
that is typically the case. They say you got too many police officers when you get a speeding ticket. And say, well, why are they all doing that? And so now there are too many, but when somebody breaks into your house and you hear them there and you're in the bedroom and you can't get somebody there, it's like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're in trouble either way, but one of the things is we need to have that attitude of let's help our sheriffs, let's help our local agencies, and let's figure out what we really need to do instead of just saying cut their budget.
So part of this, I think, is more than just the elected officials that we all have to deal with as far as our state legislators who do the funding. We as the citizenry have to put a little bit of pressure on them saying, hey, if you've got to put more of a budget towards this, it's worth it. I mean, people will they'll raise their taxes for a city park. What we need to do is get them to raise their taxes to make sure there are enough deputies making a living wage, so to speak. They got to be able to make more than they do at McDonald's to be able to be in law enforcement.
Exactly, and here's the thing is we want to attract the best people we can. And if we're only willing to pay the McDonald's wage, how are we going to attract those good quality people that can come in and make life-changing decisions on a day-in basis? If we don't attract the good quality people, we're going to have those people that do, because I'll admit we have people that cause problems for us in law enforcement. Some of our own have brought a little bit of tarnished our badges a little bit on things, and so we want to attract the good people, but it's a balance of all the above.
How is it that a bad apple in law enforcement gets so much more attention than one in education? Because that's what I look at. Education always gets whatever they want and law enforcement doesn't. I'm hard pressed to see the difference, and I know I'm going to have teachers get after me about this, but I'm really hard pressed to see a difference in the importance of those two jobs in a community. Can you defend it? Can you support it?
My opinion has always been who has the most impact on our community is our teachers. They really do. They start with those kids in kindergarten all the way up through. But where do our government leaders look first to cut when they're looking to save money for whatever project they may have? They look to our public education and our public safety.
And you guys so far have taken the brunt of it because you're not as vocal as the education organization.
No, and we like to go to work. That's what we do. We're used to going to work and trying to fix problems, and we don't want to cause too many problems, but we also do stir it sometimes.
But now we have to start speaking out because we're in a crisis situation.
Would you call it, Rosie, would you actually call it a crisis?
I would, because we're obligated by law, especially in our jails, to provide the best care for those inmates. And if we can't hire people to work those jails, we still provide that. However, we're not going to be able to take more inmates. At some point, we have to say, we can't do this.
There's not a veiled threat to get more money.
No, it's not a threat. We've been at full capacity in Salt Lake County for several years. Previous sheriff used to argue that all the time. But at some point we have to be able to do something to hire people to work in the jails, or I don't know where we're going to be several years down the road if we continue the way we're doing. That's why I want to change, the hiring age. I think it will work, but I'm going to need a lot of support to get there, and money, because we have to train. If they're younger, we have to start training them a little bit different than what we currently train.
Thank you so much for your input
you.
today. We are actually going to come back to the county seat in just a minute. We're going to go on the ground in one county to find out how a deputy shortage actually affects their day-to-day operation. Stay with us. We'll be back on the county seat.